So of course, at the end, if you decide you want to go back and you want to rewatch this, just shoot me a message on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to share that video with you. Probably be done through Dropbox because it's a pretty large file, of course. But thank you once again for all the participation and engagement. I greatly appreciate it. It's so much better than sort of sitting here speaking to a camera and going through slides and those types of things. I'm loving the discussion. So thank you very much. All right. Any other questions on the featured section before we move on? I think we're pretty good there. All right, we're going to scroll down. As far as the activity goes, I really only use activity when I'm interested potentially in connecting with somebody. I'll often stop at their activity to kind of see the type of content that they're engaged with. It kind of helps align me with their interests and my interest to determine would they be a good person to add to my network. So the more activity that you have in your profile, the better off you're going to be as you're enhancing your brand and creating your brand. So not much to say about that area.
Scott, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So
Hi, Jennifer.
So I'm going to say something about activity because you need to be active on LinkedIn or you will stop showing up in recruiter searches. So a lot of people make the mistake of putting up a great profile and then bugging out and not engaging, and nobody's going to see you. So please be active. I define that by at least 2 to 3 times a week. Make an original post, comment and react to the posts of others, and do not include a link in your post or hit the share button. Drop those into the comments.
Absolutely. And after we kind of go through a profile, we're going to discuss engagement and content creation and all those sort of things that you hit on just a little bit. We're going to do a deeper dive on that. So I'd love to hear your insight as we go through this as well. One thing that you'll notice in my about section, Eddie's about section, and others that we've seen, the idea of adding bold. I saw Jennifer's real quick and she had some hearts in there. Once again, if we go back to cool symbol. And if I go to font generator and font changer, I think it's working. There we go. I can type in whatever word that I would like to have in a different font than what LinkedIn offers us. So I might type in, I spelled creator wrong, but you get the picture. And then I go down and I can pick any of the fonts that might stand out. I personally don't like to get too terribly crazy. So I typically pick bold font or italic bold font. But once I hit copy, it's then on my clipboard. I can then go into my profile and then of course paste it. And then now you have a bold type print to make things stand out a little bit more. If you want different types of categories, you could do it that way. So that's how we get the bold. Scroll down a little bit more, and this is where we get into our experience section. And with the experience section, this is literally chronologically your work history. It's probably the one area where I would say it could probably look the most like your resume. Once again, if you take Holly, for example, who's doing an extreme career type of pivot, I still probably would put skills that are transitional into what you want to do next after service or in your next career. So maybe you don't talk about, I can't remember quite what it was, if it was HVAC or working on airplanes, and then you want to be a recruiter. I would still focus on quality control, training and development, career counseling of your subordinates, and those types of things that are closely related to what you want to do next in your career, without necessarily talking about what it is that you actually do on a daily basis. As you can see here with my first two jobs, and even moving down into my third job, I have more than just my job title. I feel like this is another area where I could potentially add some keywords that somebody might be searching for. My actual job title for the Air Force is a community readiness consultant. But as you can see, that's not even the job title that I decided to use on LinkedIn. And it's not the job title that I use in my resume. With that said, it's super important that the dates and your job titles that are in your resume align with what's in your LinkedIn profile, because recruiters will be looking at the two of them. Well, why did it say in his resume that he started in 2009, but in his LinkedIn profile, it says he started in 2010? Why in his resume does it say he's a career readiness consultant, but in his LinkedIn profile, it says he's the employment program manager? Well, which is it? So we need them to align with each other. But I feel that my duties align more with being the employment program manager than it does with being a community readiness consultant. If I was changing careers and I wanted to work for the city of O'Fallon, and I wanted to work in all different areas that relate to helping a community, then I'd probably change my job title. But I want to be known as the employment program manager, so that's my job title. With that said, for those of you that are in service, I don't mind having both your civilian title and your military title in this area. Because once again, you're going to have people that stumble across your LinkedIn profile that understand military jargon, they understand military terminology, so they'll get it. But you're also going to have other people that have maybe never spent time in service and they don't quite understand. So you can kind of give them the best of both worlds in this area. As we look at the way that I've sort of laid mine out, I've broken them down into different sort of categories that I want to be known for. Looking at this now, if I was to go back and change it and optimize it, I probably should have more results and accomplishments, outcome, make it a little bit more outcome oriented. Those types of things that you might want to have in your profile in this area. But once again, I think bullets are crisp, clean, they're easy to read. Once again, if you want to go to cool symbols and you want to use a different color of a bullet font, you can do that. If you want to use a traditional bullet, you can do that as well. But it's really up to you as to how you want to present this information. We'll look at some other experience sections in a moment. Do we have any questions?
No questions here, but I do have a comment about that. The keeping your military title or having a civilianized title and then keeping your military title in that job section. You won't necessarily do it on your resume, but I think it is helpful to do it here because I coach recruiters every single day and a lot of them do not have a good grasp of military experience. They have no idea what an NCOIC is. They have no idea what rank means as far as scope and responsibility. And so if you're trying to use that title of section leader or platoon leader, they're not going to get it, and they're just going to skim right over you. Because I go through that all the time with somebody who is stationed very close to a military base as a recruiter, but does not have that experience and is struggling right now. And so just make it easier for them, make it easier for yourself, because you could be losing out on some good opportunities over a recruiter that hasn't necessarily been trained.
I totally agree. And that's why I think in this platform, you can have both of them and you're going to be totally fine. If we go down, look at, been helping Melissa kind of work with her section. You know, and another thing I'll say is, you know, if you're going to use the Air Force and that's been your career, use the Air Force throughout, whatever branch of service you are. That way it kind of creates this streamline. I know for Scott Air Force Base where I'm at, some people might work at, and I'm going to use acronyms, SDDC or US Transcom. And what they've decided to do is break away from their branch of service and then use the organization that they're stationed at. Well, to a recruiter, it might look like you were in the military, then you weren't in the military, then you're back in the military. How does that all align? It's not making sense to them. So just put the branch of service that you're in throughout. The one thing that I kind of like about what's been done with her profile that's not in my profile is, once again, sort of all the numbers and the accomplishments and those types of things. It really creates an idea of her scope of responsibility and the good things that she has done while in service. Britt asked a question. She's currently working artillery in the Army. She doesn't want to do that anymore. She wants to get into athletic administration. So she's really going through a huge sort of career type of pivot. Once again, I would look at the extra things that you do on the job that relate to athletic administration, business administration, etc. You might talk about PT. You might actually talk about coaching other individuals or serving as a mentor. You might talk about managing a budget. You might talk about, help me out, anybody. I mean, there's just a lot of little things that you do: quality assurance, process improvement, safety. There's a lot of things, little things you do in the job are different from artillery that are a transition into the career field that you want to go into. And that's what you need to pinpoint. So any thoughts from anybody else? I know, Jennifer, this is kind of your realm also.
I'm going to hop in before Jennifer real quick, because I do have to hop off here quickly. But I do want to say, Britt, for your question, if you still have time in right now, I would encourage you to start putting yourself out there for programs that are going to align you to where you're trying to go. So if you're trying to get into athletic administration, like Scott said, you know, leading PT, if that's something that you're doing, volunteering for CYS as a coach on the weekends, or in their, CYS is always looking for volunteers on base. So positioning yourself now while you're still in for those opportunities to continue to grow in that section that you're wanting to grow in, because there might not be a lot of transferable skills right now, but there is a lot of opportunity for you to, you're going to have to hustle because you're making such a big pivot, but you can at least use this time right now to start volunteering, putting your name out there. Even if there's projects within your organization where you're like, I really think that this could help me as far as being transferable, like put your name in the hat and let's see if you can have that opportunity. So use this time to set yourself up.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And I actually recently started coaching at a local high school. So I think that that'll be something that I can actually leverage and help me, you know, boost that, just the look of it as well.
Yeah. And it shows that, you know, coaching kids is not easy. Like they're terrible. I have them. Like it is not easy whatsoever. And so that, you know, really speak to how you're able to build trust with these kids so that they trust you and so that they listen to you and they're willing to take your feedback that you're offering them as you're coaching. Because coaching in and of itself takes a lot of transferable skills that you're already doing right now, as far as presentations goes, as far as like you're doing all of these things. You just got to sit back and like scope your day. What do you do in a day, and where and how can you translate that? I mean, I could tell you that I'm a financial advisor because I tell my child she can't eat Chick-fil-A every day. Like, I just, how you present it is really what's going to matter.
Okay, sweet. Thanks for the input.
Yep.
So my advice is to start having a lot of conversations with people who are already in the space. So we call them informational interviews or virtual coffees, whatever you like. But start asking questions about their journey, how they got to where they are, what certifications are most valuable in their industry, because as you transition out, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to get those certifications. Start asking what they would advise, what routes they advise. I think Nadia's advice is really very good. Ask what their insight is and who else that you should talk to. Because remember, everybody in an industry knows everybody else. So at the end of that conversation, you will have started to build rapport and they'll be willing to introduce you to people. Along the same lines of what Nadia was saying about coaching, if you have anything that you can talk about behavior modification, all of that is part of coaching, right? Because you can't motivate anybody to do anything if you don't know what they're motivated by and if you don't hold the reinforcement. So if that is part of anything you've done, and if you have any kind of leadership, it is, so build on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I mean, this goes across the board for anybody that is potentially thinking about switching careers and moving from one industry to another industry, and kind of how to align yourself with that path that you want to go next as you move into a different part of your career. So with that said, in this experience section, you really kind of want to focus away from artillery and focus more on the skills that align with what you want to do next, and add them in this area. So I do have a question for anybody that's out there in the recruiting industry that's still with us. If we're going to take Brittany here sort of as an example, if she is starting to volunteer in areas that align with what she wants to do next, should she have that under her experience section, or should she separate that into volunteer experience? What do you think works best for you as somebody that's trying to bring somebody into your organization? What is your differentiation between experience versus volunteerism?
Okay, so I'll jump in. I don't see a difference. If you look at my experience section, everything I do with vets to industry is listed under experience, but it's volunteer experience. However, it is the only experience that I have that I can point to and say, this is what I did in transition. I, just like Britt, I threw myself into the space and met everybody I could and talked to everybody I could and demonstrated that I could do it. I can't remember if I said this already, but my background is in HR, early childhood education, and animal behavior.
Yes.
So, it's nothing to do with transition whatsoever. But I think that volunteer experience is incredibly valuable. I would list it just like I would list a job. You have responsibilities, you have due outs, you have reports that you turn in. I really don't understand why we have two different sections.
Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. I mean, I think, like, it probably depends, like if you're doing a volunteer thing that's every, it's a weekend or something like that. And it's like, it's not the primary focus of what it is that you do. But what you're doing is you're aligning your brand with the actual experience that you have. So to me, that would fall under the experience. Katie, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so kind of going back on that, I did the same thing, and that is exactly why I'm here today representing AFS. Because I had on there that I was an ombudsman for 3 years, and that's what caught the eye of my hiring manager. And it was a volunteer position, but I knew the work I had put in. I knew it was work. And it was 3 years, of the NOAC, in Yokosuka, Japan, just constant, like all the time for 3 years. So, and I remember when I was interviewing, that's what he said stood out to him was that, and it was the only reason I decided to put it on a, as my experience was because I had attended a session just like this, but at the time, I was a milspouse, like active duty. And she had suggested, she's like, that was work. She's like, that was a job, you were volunteering, but it's an experience that is, part of your brand and my, subject matter expert, on military everything. So, and because she told me to put that on there, that's kind of why I'm here today. So I'm definitely an example of, I feel like it definitely belongs there. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thanks. Who else has raised their hand? I don't see the names. I just see a hand was risen.
Hey, it's Scott, it's me.
Yes.
For the volunteering, how far should we go back? I've got something, I'm looking at mine right now. I go back to 2018, 2014. Is that all still relevant, or should we keep it, because I've continued to volunteer, whether it be through church or through community, American Legion, things like that. Should we keep it current, or is that history of volunteering mean something?
I personally, I would go with that general rule of thumb of the 10 to 15 year range. As long as it falls within that range, you're going to be good to go with what you have. But then, it's once again with like take for you, for example, Todd, you have this, this career in the service, I personally would probably say, unless once again, you're making an extreme pivot into something different, I would probably say your volunteer experience should be separate from your actual work experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of my volunteering does do like project management. So there is some connection there, but I don't necessarily portray it that way.
You should, if that is the industry you want to go into, then that's your opportunity to drop those keywords. You should absolutely be focusing on that. Those are the, everything is searchable. So those are the words that Katie is using to find you.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer.
All right. So let's go back once again. Any questions on the experience section, or we think we kind of got that pretty good? Once again, the one thing I will say is make sure that there's impact statements, make sure there's quantitative information, shows your scope of responsibility, and it aligns with your resume. Next is our education. Of course, whatever type of degree you have, or once again, if it's relative to the direction that you want to go next in your career, you're going to want to have that there. I think in this area, you can sort of put all of them. A person will look at them or scroll past them if they don't want to see it. My example would be, let's say you are in logistics and you have your master's degree in supply chain management, but you went to the Community College of the Air Force and you were a security forces and you have your associate's degree in security forces. In your resume, I'd probably say leave that out of your resume. In your LinkedIn profile, you can go ahead and add it. It might carry some weight. It probably won't carry much weight. But you know, it's kind of an all-inclusive place to put everything that you have done. So with that said, you know, just go ahead and add it all there if you would like to. Next is our license and certifications. With this one, what is really cool is if you do LinkedIn Learning, it asks you, do you want to add that to your profile? So if you don't have a lot of major certs, then I would probably do some LinkedIn Learning that is relevant to the direction you want to go next in your career. So Britt, for example, maybe you did some LinkedIn Learning that aligned with athletic administration, and then you added it to your profile to sort of enhance your brand. But if you have a really solid certification like I tend to have here, I don't add my LinkedIn Learning to my profile because it would push down my certifications to the point where a person would have to click on the see more to see the other things that I have in my portfolio. So I would really be picky and choosy as to what you decide to put in this area. But if you don't have any professional certifications, definitely do LinkedIn Learning to align with your brand to add it to this category. Cam, have you added your certs to this area? Is Cam still with us? All right. So any other thoughts or questions about license and certifications? The one thing I would also always say is make sure that you find the organization that certified you. Make sure you find their professional company page for LinkedIn. So that way you have the official logo aligned with your certification. It just goes to show a little bit more authenticity in it. All right. Next is volunteering, which I think we kind of already hit pretty good. Trying to scroll down on it. Oops, I went past it. So with that said, I mean, you know, this could have gone up in my experience, but I feel like my experience section is pretty solid and it aligns with what I want to do and what I do. So in this aspect, I have it as a totally different category. Moving down is our skills. So with our skills, they can be endorsed by other people. So if you look at what I have as my top 3, LinkedIn strategist, career development, and instructional design, this should give you an idea of what areas I am really good at in my profession. And what you can do is you can move the top 3 up and down by simply hitting the pencil. And I know they just switched this around to how you do it. So bear with me a moment. LinkedIn is constantly making changes and adjustments and those types of things. Basically, this just tells me the people that have endorsed me for career development. So let's see here. If I click on reorder. So if I click on the 3 dots and then I do reorder, that's where I can move things up into my top 3. So let's say I wanted to move Department of Defense into my top 3, which I would argue that's not necessarily a skill. And then I save it. Now I have Department of Defense in my top 3. So my suggestion is, if you're actively looking for employment, you want your top 3 to be what you're known about. Because as people are looking at your profile, for the most part, they're not going to click see more to see all 50 skills that you have. And you can have 50 skills to be endorsed. So your top 3. If you are solid in your career and you want people to endorse you for other things, then move the 3 things that you want to be endorsed for up to your top 3, because most likely people are going to endorse you for the top 3 things that they see. And basically all this does is it, once again, as a person's looking at your profile to see that 99 plus people has endorsed me for career development, it would make them have the assumption, wow, Scott must be really good at career development. Candace, you have a question.
I do. So coming from teaching, as of right now, there's not a lot of teachers that are seriously on LinkedIn. So I have a lot of issues with, I have some issues with the skills and being endorsed, because I don't have a lot of coworkers that are really on enough or even have a profile to endorse or write me an endorsement. So how do you deal with that? Because that's where a lot of my endorsements would come from, were coworkers, which are teachers that aren't on.
Sure. So typically speaking, and once again, anybody else can chime in. If you endorse other people, they will endorse you. So let's say, for example, I am going through different people's profiles. And one day, one evening, I'm kind of going through LinkedIn and I see something Jennifer posts. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I really like what Jennifer posts. Let me kind of go look at her profile and see what she's got going on. So what I'll do is I'll kind of go through everything, and then I'll scroll to the bottom of it and I'll see skills and endorsements. So with that said, I mean, while we're here and going back real quick to licensures and certifications, as you can see here, Jennifer has made a decision to add most of her licensure and certifications from LinkedIn Learning to her profile, which when I look at this, I can see right away that once again, she's all about understanding LinkedIn, the job search process, the elevator pitch, etc. So she's made a decision to add that to her profile. But once again, as I scroll down, I go down to her skills and endorsements. And I see here that she has social networking as one of her top 3 skills. Now, I've never necessarily met Jennifer. We've never even had virtual coffee yet. Hopefully that I can tell by the way that she engages on the LinkedIn profile or the LinkedIn platform that she's pretty good at LinkedIn or social networking. So I would be more than happy to give her an endorsement in this area. Then what's going to happen is Jennifer is going to get a message from me saying, Scott just endorsed you in social networking. Hopefully, what she would then do is pay it forward by going into my profile and maybe picking a category of my skills and endorsements to endorse me in that skill as well. So by kind of endorsing other people, that tends to lead other people into endorsing you as well. Now, would I endorse her in leadership? I definitely probably could. I have a strong feeling that she's probably a really good leader. I've never seen her actually lead people. So I might be a little bit, I'm not quite sure about that one. But as far as training, she's been insightful. She's been engaged. She's given us a lot of great information this afternoon. So yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll endorse her in training also. But those are the ways that you're going to get endorsed, is by endorsing other people. Does that help?
I guess sort of. I mean, I'm looking at like if some of my skills are like instructional design. Well, who's gonna endorse me for instructional design other than somebody you've worked with that's seen you do instructional design? Or is that not necessarily how it's done? I don't know.
Yeah, this is a really interesting sort of area of our profile. I wouldn't put necessarily 100 too much weight as to I've got to get endorsed, I got to get endorsed, I've got to get endorsed.
Mhm.
My boss, when I did our LinkedIn class for the people I work with, she's kind of like, and I don't know what that is really, because I never did a slam book. Does anybody know what a slam book is or something like that? Where people just say something nice about you, even though they really don't know if you're good in that area. So really, what type of weight does this carry? But if random people over the amount of time endorse you in curriculum development, what it does for me as somebody looking at your profile says like, okay, that's her niche. That's her background. What I probably would recommend doing for yourself is really kind of looking at other teachers that are looking to leave the classroom and connecting with them on LinkedIn. As I've been on this platform the past 3 months or so, I'm seeing a huge increase of teachers that are wanting to leave the classroom and find a corporate type job. Those are the people that I think you should start to network with, because as they start to find positions, they might be able to help you with finding an opportunity also.
Candace, I want to add to that. Like Scott said, we've never met in person. But I can speak to his skills and he obviously can speak to mine because we've interacted on this platform. So in my opinion, that's the answer to your question. Can you demonstrate for us how you execute instructional design? Can you make posts about it? Can you make a little video or a little slide deck about it? Then when people comment, because if you use your hashtag strategically, you'll reach the right people. When people comment, reach out to them and say, thank you for engaging with my post. Would you mind endorsing me for instructional design?
Mhm.
Also, go over to skills assessment. It's under the jobs icon, looks like a little briefcase, and see if there are any skills quizzes you can take in there. That is how you get endorsements from LinkedIn itself. And that's how you earn a skills badge. So if there's something under there you can take, I highly recommend you take those.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, that's really good. So that's a quick overview of skills and endorsements. It's not the grandest thing, but what it does for a recruiter is it kind of, once again, in a keyword format, gives you an idea of the areas that you are proficient in, and other people just have the ability to endorse you for that skill. Recruiters that are out there, Katie, anybody else that's still out there for me that's a recruiter, do you pay attention to skills and endorsements?
Well, this is Katie.
Yeah.
Short answer is yes. I could care less personally how many people have endorsed you for something. That's part I don't really, personally for me, that's part I don't really care. What I do care about is what's on there. Because a lot of times that's what's going to come up. If I'm doing a Boolean string search and I'm looking for certain keywords, like if I need you to be, proficient in Java, or if I, those are those kind of words. For me, that's what I'm looking for, is more keywords. I'm not going to worry if you only have 2 recommendations, on Microsoft Teams or something, because it's, not everybody endorses people. It's just, I'm kind of like what Scott said, don't put too much pressure on yourself, because there are some people who just don't really do that very often. So, but that's me.
Well, while you're on mic still, can you
Yes.
explain to job seekers what a Boolean search is and how you utilize that to find people?
Yeah, sure. That's great. Great question. So Boolean search string is, so if I get, say I get a job rec and it says this person, I need somebody who, has, experience in Java, they have experience in ServiceNow, and they have a top secret clearance. Okay. So I'm just going to use that as an example. So what I would do is I would go up to the search bar and I have to type in a Boolean string. So I would type in ServiceNow and top secret and what else did I say? Java. Yeah, Java. So I would type in all those keywords that I know that if you're going to be getting this job, you have to have these skills. So those are the keywords. And if you don't have them in your skills set on your LinkedIn, and I'm in LinkedIn Recruiter, which is a certain program in LinkedIn, if you don't have those in there, then you're not going to pop up and you won't necessarily be an option on LinkedIn if I'm using LinkedIn Recruiter.
Thank you.
Yeah, was that helpful? Did that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
So as a
perfect.
matter of fact, it was just last week as I sort of think of what type of content do I want to create to write about. I actually wrote an article on Boolean searches as
Oh,
a job seeker. So that way they can get a better understanding of how to use quotes and
yes, quotes are
parentheses.
huge. Yes, in Boolean searches. Yeah.
Right. So you can use them on LinkedIn or you can
Mhm.
use them on Indeed
Yes.
to help narrow down the searches for jobs that you're looking at. So
Yes.
kind of take a look at my activity section and my posts, and you'll be able to see my article on Boolean searches.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, I'll definitely look that up. And actually, you just made me think of something when you were talking about that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So certain jobs too, this is something I'm going to throw this out there. In certain skills, sometimes people will put, okay, so I'm going to use ServiceNow as another example. It's a digital platform. Some people will put ServiceNow and it's listed as one word, right? They'll just live as service, like no space. Some people will do ServiceNow and it's listed as 2 words. Some people will do ServiceNow and they call it snow. So if you have a skill like that, some people call it different things, like a recruiter might call it snow, but you might call it ServiceNow. Put all 3 of those in your skills, because depending on what I was told, like if I was told, like say I didn't know that all those terms mean the same thing, then make sure you put them all in there, because you're like, well, I don't know if this recruiter knows that if you're in the know that it's called snow. So
Yes. Very good. And this goes back to kind of what Jennifer was saying, and maybe even Holly, about talking to people that are in the industry that you want to go into to find out what the keywords are that potentially they're using and add that into part of your search. So I love it.
yep, perfect. Yep.
All right, let's keep going. The next one is recommendations. So we're still in Jennifer's profile. And what used to be, once again, like I said, LinkedIn is constantly changing things. And over here, it used to say how many was received and how many was given. Now you have to scroll down a little bit more, and then you can see that, she's received 13 of them. If I go over into her given, I can see that she has given 4 of them, which is good. So with that said, recommendations are a huge part of your profile. It is literally 14 people that Jennifer has worked with in the past that has decided to give her a written recommendation about who she is as a person and a professional. It really stands out and it separates yourself from the competition. Jennifer may not ask Brad Burris to be a reference as she's looking at a new job opportunity. Most likely, Jennifer is going to pick the individuals that are in her most inner circle that are really going to say something nice about her, like, and that will give her a really good reference. So references are sort of losing the traction that they used to have, because recruiters know of course, you're not going to somebody first that's going to potentially say something bad about you. But by going to your LinkedIn profile and seeing your recommendations, it goes above and beyond a reference. So one thing that you cannot be afraid to do is reach out to somebody. And I noticed Jennifer actually talked about this. And I think it was, bear with me, Mark Gavin's post about asking for references. And in my LinkedIn workshop that I do at Scott Air Force Base, I actually have a narrative that a person can send to somebody saying, hey, I'm preparing to think about life outside the military, or I'm thinking about changing careers. Would you mind writing a recommendation for me? In particularly, can you talk about Project X, where we did Y and Z? So you're almost writing it for them to make it easier for them to come up with something to talk about as they recommend you. But recommendations carry a huge amount of weight. I highly recommend it. And if you can make their job easier to put that together, then go for it. Recruiters that are still out there, Jennifer, Cam, Nadia, if you're back, any thoughts on the recommendations section?
So I tell my clients that they're still going to need their references, but this section is hugely important for people like me. I work based on word of mouth, and I need service members and military spouses to know that they're going to be safe in my hands. So they'll reach out to me. So this section is really important to me. I always, you're going to get tired of hearing me say this, that everything is searchable. So if there are keywords in there that is going to lead Katie or Eddie to find me for something specific, well, that's added value. But yeah, I agree, obviously, because I said it. Yeah, make it easy for people. So what I do is I give a grid. It's just 2 columns. One side is what the employer is looking for, and the other side is how I meet or exceed that. And I give it to the people who I'm asking a recommendation of, and pick something from here, something we worked on together, something you can speak to. But yeah, make it really easy for them.
Absolutely. So, and then Nadia, I guess, who is back, says Scott recommends recommendations. I 100% recommending other people. Why? It makes them feel good, right? Can you imagine you log into LinkedIn and somebody has recommended you and they've said all these great things about you? You automatically feel better about yourself. Also, it helps them with their job search process, because now other people are looking at their profile and they're seeing what a great individual they are. So it kind of helps them in the long run. And then the third reason I love to do it is it puts your profile in their profile. So if somebody's looking at the recommendation that you wrote for somebody else, it may drive them to look at your profile also, which could result in an opportunity. So recommend people, pay it forward. What are your thoughts, Nadia?
So I'll tell you a quick story about Eddie, myself, Scott, and Cam. Because Eddie was aiming for a position and he sent us a text message and said, hey guys, this position I'm looking at, can you go ahead? I'm going to start driving this recruiter to my page, but I need you guys to go in there and write me some recommendations, which is easy enough for us to do because we know Eddie as a person. And we also know him professionally because he was posting a bunch of content showing us who he was. So even if we didn't feel comfortable, like on a professional level, we could at least speak to it on a personal level. And so we all went and wrote him recommendations in his profile. So when that recruiter and hiring manager went to his profile, they never met Eddie before, don't know who he is. They just knew that his name had showed up in the last 10 minutes 4 different times on this job posting. And now they see all these recommendations that Eddie has, and it gives them one more opportunity to learn about Eddie from somebody else's perspective. And so I do like the whole thought of make it easy, give people a script, but I also I wrote a recommendation for somebody because she asked me. And then she responded back and said, hey, can you go in and can you fix this line? Because it's not really clear. And I'd like you to say this. And I was like, I responded back and I said, actually, I'm not going to be able to do that because I cannot speak to that piece about you and your role, your job description, or how you're doing that piece. And so I would like this to be authentic to my experience that I've had from you. And so I didn't fix it. And so she could choose to keep that recommendation on her profile, or she could choose not to keep that recommendation on her profile. But I looked at the job that she was targeting because I asked her to send me the job description, and I pulled what I knew from her and about her, and I used that in my recommendation to her. I didn't just write, she's a great person, you should hire her. Like, and Jennifer can tell you, because I think I've written a recommendation for Jennifer. Like, I will take some time to look at what you're targeting, what I know, and I'll match the two of them up because I want, if somebody's going to take the time to read those, I want it to be value added for you. Like I said, my LinkedIn is not there for me. My LinkedIn is there for you.
That's sweet.
I'm like that.
Nadia, that should be like your tagline or something. I
I
want to
think
see
so
that somewhere
too.
on your profile.
Yeah.
It's true. When you are not seeking a job, your network and your brand is there to help the next person level up and get the job that they're looking for, because you have a unique set of skills and experience where you've secured a job. But the best way to pay it forward is to help the next person get to that level too.
But even when you were looking for a role, that was your brand. That was your brand from the moment I met you. That, I'm telling you, that needs to be on your profile somewhere.
I agree.
Banana bread, I'm here to help you. My nose, like, I think you'll hear it a lot. Your network is your net worth.
Yep.
Is that it? Did I say
Yeah.
it right?
You did, yes.
Yeah. So really, I am very particular about my network. A bunch of you have sent me connection requests, and not very many of you have sent me a personal message, which is totally fine because we're in this platform and I know who you are. But when somebody sends me a connection request, we have 5 mutual connections, and you don't tell me why you're connecting with me, I'm probably not going to connect with you because I'm really particular about my network, and I'm adding people in my network who can help other people. I'm adding VPs, I'm adding HR professionals, I'm adding recruiters because I want to see what they're posting so that if their job leads to something for you, I can connect the two of you and I can do a warm introduction. So just something to keep in mind about that. But as it relates to recommendations, if you are trying to booster your profile, write the recommendation, because then more than likely that person is going to return the favor for you as well. What do you think, Cam?
I mean, you've always been the bougie connector of us all. While me, Eddie, and Scott are like, hey, I got like 10 requests. She's like, I just went through like 150 and it was horrible. I agree that recommendations help. It's actually honestly helped me a lot because people will actually send you, someone sent me a message today actually. Hey, I saw Nadia wrote you this review. She said this, that, and the third. I'd like to talk about this. So like people read those and they use that as a connection as well. So, closed mouths don't get fed. So don't be afraid to ask as well. But also, like she said, is be prepared for what people ask and don't try and tell them what to say about you.
Yeah, and then as you're reaching out to people and asking for recommendations, diversify it. If you're in a position of leadership, not only get people that have supervised you, but get people that you have supervised to talk about what a good leader you were. Get recommendations from the customers that you've helped and you've supported throughout your career, and how potentially you've helped them and those types of things. So diversify who recommendations from also. Yes. Did you have a question, Todd?
Yeah, I lost the connection there for a second.
Okay.
Timing for these. Right now, I was looking at my recommendations, and they're a couple of years old, and I got to work on diversifying them. And shame on me because I've done a whole lot of things the last 2 years that I just need to reach out and have folks, give and take for those recommendations. Is there a big deal about how old those might be? Or should, do we need to keep them within the last year, or does it matter?
I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter as, I mean, obviously, if you're getting some that are more recent, they carry a little bit more weight. I'm in the same way, you know, it's been a little bit since I've received a recommendation and I'm like, well, I must not be doing a good job anymore. Or I just kind of have sort of slacked off on it a little bit. But one thing that is kind of cool about recommendations is as the person's job title changes or their headline changes, that goes with the recommendation as well. So let's say, for example, a young captain recommended you that was in the Army, and now all of a sudden, 5 years later, he's the CEO of Uber. It's like all of a sudden you got a recommendation from the CEO of Uber and not the young captain that was in the Army, you know, 5 years ago or whatever it was. So that's kind of another cool aspect about recommendations is people tend to look at it as like, whoa, you got a recommendation from the CEO of Uber versus, you know, a young captain. So kind of keep that in mind. But while I'll say I don't think anybody would look at it and be like, well, why hasn't he been recommended in 2 or 3 years? Is and relevant would probably be more advantageous for you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Absolutely. Yep. Is Eddie back? We got a text saying that Eddie might be coming back. I didn't know if he made it.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, good. What are your thoughts on recommendations real quick?
So putting on recruiter hat, to me, it really doesn't do much for me as I go out on my search. However, they can be used, right? If that recruiter is an advocate, a champion for that candidate, that applicant, they can be used as leverage to bring to the table to a hiring manager who's kind of iffy and looking for specific things. I can be like, hey, look at all the recommendations that this individual has, right? Based off of specific things that the hiring manager was looking for, and maybe addressed in that recommendation section. So instead of getting referrals, maybe we do it there. So initially, it's not anything that's really telling for me. But again, that's if I'm looking at a job seeker. Now, if you got a business, you're with a nonprofit, then I think recommendations definitely do mean a lot. I think for like you, Scott, definitely, you know, for what you do. I honestly think is that you've probably fallen off because you do a hell of a job. I mean, you got me to Lockheed. And you got me introduced to so many people that have really led to my success today. And as a matter of fact, I'm probably embarrassing myself. Did I ever give you a recommendation? Right? Because if not, I definitely need to double down on that.
I need to look. I don't quite know.
Please,
But no, I mean, this alone already makes me blush. So I appreciate it.
For shame, Eddie.
You're
No,
not alone, Eddie. I owe at least 2 people on this call recommendations and way behind.
All right.
No, this actually makes up a good point, and I'm glad we're having this discussion because I look on people's profiles and they have 50 recommendations, but they've only given 2. And it's kind of like, okay, are you a giver or a taker, or are you a little bit of both? What I try to do, Scott, personally, and once again, I've kind of fallen off a little bit on this. Every time I get a recommendation, I try to think of somebody that I can give a recommendation to. So that way they kind of seem even with each other. And it's not like, oh, it's all about me, right? So I would say moving forward for the people that we have left, let's make it a point that every time you get a recommendation, you find somebody to give a recommendation to. Is that a deal?
Yeah, love that. That's awesome.
I think for me this year, the focus is anybody that I know is actively seeking a job. Like that's the people that I need to be writing recommendations for, is anybody who has the open to work banner on or who has met with me for virtual coffee, which is really hard because I'm terrible at it. But those people who have invested in their job search and they're like positioning themselves on LinkedIn for those roles, those are the people that I really feel I need to be writing recommendations for.
Perfect. All right, so we are down to 13 minutes. Literally at Scott Air Force Base, my LinkedIn workshop is 6 hours long. because we work on our profile as we're talking, we take a lunch break and then come back and do some more. There's just so much content to go over on this platform that even 3 hours doesn't do it justice. So we have about, like I said, about 15 minutes left. And I want to kind of spend that time a little bit on engagement, because I think that's where we get our most value as we are going through this. And literally what I do is I'll go through my feed and I'll look for content that I feel like I can comment on. And I don't want to necessarily give it a quick thumbs up. I want to make sure that I provide an insightful comment on whatever it was the individual is discussing. I'm not quite sure. So it looks like 23 people have given it a nice little thumbs up, but 25 people have commented. That's actually really good engagement for a post. And
That's 23 tags.
oh, so that's good. That's a whole nother story. All right. So wait, how many? Only 2 people have given it a thumbs up, but 25 people have commented. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yep.
I know. It's weird, right?
That's really good, but it just goes to show what type of content resonates with people. Pictures of her with other people. It's a lot more, while it's networking, it's kind of personal, but this is what kind of people want to see and talk about and discuss. So it's just kind of interesting that it's gotten so much kind of comments on it. And maybe Marina's made a lot of comments on it to kind of boost that up, which is a different area of conversation. But bottom line is, when you engage and you provide insightful conversation into the content that was posted, you're separating yourself from everybody else. And what that means is typically people are going to look into who you are a little bit more, meaning they're going to go to your profile. And now that you know how to write an optimized profile, they're going to want to talk to you. And the more they talk to you, the more they want to help you. And the more they want to help you, the more opportunities that come your direction. So I don't want you to be a wallflower and give it a quick little thumbs up or a clap or a heart. I want you to actually go out there. So that's our first step, is just look at a person's news feed and comment on what it is that they're talking about. So for those of us that are out there that have been helping me, let's not talk about creating content. How do you engage in content, and how do you decide what content you're going to engage in?
Well, if someone tags me, I try to engage for sure. And that's based on just courtesy, but also the algorithm. I try to tell them what it is about what they're posting that speaks to me, what it is that added value, how it aligns with, what I've been talking about or what I was talking about with a client, or I try to ask a question to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, for me, very similar, right? If I get tagged, I try. It gets harder every day because with my recruiting job, it's just bananas. But I try. But also, as I'm scrolling through my feed, do I agree with the post? I can certainly comment something and add to that. Do I disagree? I can disagree respectfully. Is there something that maybe I can help clarify? Is there a tip, advice that I can share? Is there something that's a little bit confusing that maybe I'm looking for clarification? Maybe not for me, but maybe for people that I know have, seeking some sort of clarity, but they're maybe afraid to engage, maybe just asking a question for clarifying for that audience. But there's certainly a ton of ways to definitely engage. Another thing, I don't know, Scott, if you can you show like the little bell notification on someone's profile? So I know there's been like, I don't see it. Okay, it's probably downloading.
There's always constant changes.
Yeah.
You know what? Someone couldn't find it on mine either. I think, well, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the creator mode.
Well, I think there's a glitch because I have it turned on very specific people. And I've been seeing a trend of my notification not coming up. And some of these people are real close to me and they're like, hey, did you not see my post?
Right.
Like, typically come. And I'm like, no, I didn't get the notification. And sure enough, it posted, but I didn't get the little notification. So I think there's something that's definitely broken in it. But all that to say, don't give up. I would definitely recommend doing the little notification bell because obviously you're interested in someone's content, and that's a way to, again, stay engaged. You comment, you respond, the algorithm likes that. So again, it gives you more of a presence online.
Are you in content mode, Jennifer?
Yeah, the creator mode. Yeah.
Or creator mode, I mean, yeah. So I don't see the bell either.
I don't think I have creator mode turned on.
I know I don't.
I know I don't, because people just like my content anyway.
Well, of course.
Hey, banana bread.
So here's my thing about engagement on LinkedIn. So if you are like Britt and you're trying to transition into a new space, you do not want to be talking about your time as what you're doing now. You want to be talking about what you're trying to do, what you know about what you're trying to do. And when you comment on my post, not only does my network get to see it, but your network gets to see it. And so now you're adding value in a completely different way, because you can create a post, I think up to like 1,200 characters is what you can use on your own post. But if you want to start continuing to add value, that's where you meet people in the comments on their post and you start educating them, or you start kind of sharing your perspective and leading us to learn more about you is in that comment section. The posts are great, but for me, it's all about the comments, because that's where I'm going to continue to show you my expertise as it relates to culture, as it relates to IO Psych, as it relates to whatever it is that I'm trying to brand myself towards. So for those of you who are pivoting from one to the other, although your headline is important real estate, so is your comments, because it shows up on tons and tons of people's feeds. I cannot tell you how many people send me connection requests every day that said, I saw your comment on somebody else's page and I wanted to connect with you because I thought that was really insightful. So please, please know that other people, not just your network, not just my network, but other people on LinkedIn are seeing those posts, especially if they follow a hashtag that has that in there. They're going to see that post show up on their feed. And that's another way for you to show your expertise, show us the value that you bring to the role, the company, whatever it is, especially if you're following companies. Following a company that you want to work for and they're posting content every day, you should be commenting on that content every day, because guess what? The recruiter and the hiring manager are going to see your name every single time they post. And then your resume is going to show up and they're going to be like, this name's familiar. Oh, they've been commenting on my post for the last 3 weeks. That's why this name's familiar. Let me go ahead and schedule a call with them. It's all about recognition.
And if I can add to that about commenting on companies' posts, we can actually prioritize behind the scenes, right? If I have a list of 70 people that I'm like, okay, they made all the criteria, I'm going to want to prioritize which of those 70 I'm going to reach out to. So where do I spend the majority of my efforts, right? To increase the likelihood that you're going to respond to me, I can actually filter for those that have engaged with my company's content. So if I see 20 of those 70, it's clear to me based off that you're interested in my company. So I'm going to prioritize reaching out to you over the other 50. So that's why it's a good idea to engage with companies that you follow.
Two people raised their hand. I saw Todd, and I wasn't sure else who raised their hand. So go ahead.
Holly.
Todd. Holly, okay. Go ahead, Todd. And then we'll come to Holly.
Here to the microphone, sorry. So one of the things I've been trying to accomplish is to bring my feed to expand outside the military? Because my network is so military centric.
Mhm.
Does me adding posts to outside military activities and interest, will that begin to provide me news feeds that'll be outside the military? How can I get outside the military and sort of expand my my news feed every day?
Follow
Change the
people
hashtags that you're following.
Okay,
and follow people. So the difference between a connection and a follow, if when you follow someone, you are going to see their content on your feed, but they won't see yours. A connection, it goes back and forth. So start following people that are outside of your space so that you can get more variety introduced into your feed. And then that's actually a great way to connect. Maybe you don't want to connect. You're not comfortable connecting with them yet. But as you get to see their content and you really start to engage with it, then that's a great way to send a message and connection. Like, hey, Eddie, I've been following your content, love it. But now I'm like, oh, damn, well, thank you. And so now that's a way for you to be a little bit more comfortable reaching out to actually connect.
Todd, do you know how to use the search to find people in the industries or the companies that you're interested in?
no, I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a perfect at it or an expert, but I'm working on it. I've been taking a class by Shift, Networking Next or Negotiating Next, and that they went into a class
Excellent.
that got into that.
Also use that same search to search for connections of. So for instance, if you're looking for recruiters, then I would definitely put connections of Eddie. And then if you're looking for a specific industry or specific company, you can put that in there as well. But like I said, everybody knows everybody in the same industry. So that would be a really great way to at least start following recruiters or whatever you're interested in.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on for hours on this, but I mean, Jennifer brought a great idea about connections of. So when you go into the all filters, one of the categories that you can put in there is connections of. So you could literally go through my connections, Nadia's connections, Jennifer's connections, Eddie's connections, and then break it down into an organization that you might want to work for. And it'll tell you everybody that works for that organization that's connected to Eddie. So yeah, connections of is a really kind of a neat way to, or once again, there's somebody that you're following or you're connected with that's in the industry that you want to go into, looking at their connections could be really beneficial.
Yeah. Or my other perspective, and I'm sorry, Harley, I'll let you hop on, but is if you are going to look at other companies and follow the company pages, a lot of the times they'll have employees who work there listed. And so what I like to do is I'll hop in and look at some of their profiles for people who post content often, because 9 times out of 10, they're usually posting content about their company. So I can read about what's happening in the company or about the company and stuff like that. So I can remain kind of up to date in some of the changes. And more importantly, I can remain up to date in some of the pain points that they're experiencing so that if I do get an informational interview, I can speak to how I can help with that pain point. So if you're going to be connecting with the company pages and you're going to see some of the people that you want to connect with because you went to the same school together, your kids go to the same school together, whatever like middle ground you have with that person and why you're going to reach out to them, you now have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the company without, hey, tell me more about the company.
And that's by me following them, is what you're saying, right, Nadia?
Yep, you can follow
Not just
them.
connecting, as Eddie said, but follow, and then that'll lead to a nice transition to connect. Perfect.
And then maybe after 2 months of you following that person and reading their content, you could say, you know, a couple of weeks ago, you made a post about this and tie it back to the post that they're making today. Now they're going to know, gosh, this person read my post 3 weeks ago and they're reading my post today. Like they're value added. Like I want to talk to this person. I want to connect with them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Holly, you're up.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No,
No,
Eddie,
you guys are good.
this doesn't
all
this
of
doesn't
this is
automatically
great.
shut down at 3. So
Yeah,
Holly,
you're
go
great.
ahead.
Well, one thing for Todd, if you look at he's got it pulled up right now. I've got 387 followers, 313 connections. That's all happened in the last 4 weeks, literally 4 weeks. Before that, I had maybe 60 connections, all military based. Now I have expanded because I've done the research, looking for recruiters, stalking Eddie's friends and groups and all that. And Nadia, just a touch to you, and I'm working on it. I followed a couple of groups with you that you follow, because I can't actually message you right now because I've ran out of messaging even with my premium. But once I get added to one of those groups, then I can privately message you and ask for like that network connection. So that's another way. If you run out of your direct messaging, and Eddie, I think you were the one that helped me realize this. Once you follow groups of someone else that follows the same groups, you can actually send them a private message without having to worry about that running out of because I think you only get like 5 or 7 a month. And I can't open mine back up till February 8th because I've been, again, trying to network like crazy this month.
So
That's-
if someone responds though to your InMail, you get that credit back.
Yes.
Oh, sweet. That's good to know. See, again, these are all super great tips that I just appreciate you guys so much.
Or Holly, another great way, if you're trying to connect with me, send me a message with your connection request. Tell me why you wanted to connect. Hey, Nadia, it was seeing you in the class today. I noticed that you dropped your LinkedIn profile. I hope you're open to connecting. That way you're not using any credits because it's an automatic message. I think there's 100 and something characters. I don't know how many characters there are, but you get to send this message to this person to say, hey, here's who I am and why I want to connect with you. I will tell you right now, I prioritize everybody that sends me a personal message with it. I don't care why. This one guy sent me a message today and he was like, we have 5 mutual connections, but your work history makes me think we have a lot more in common. I was like, absolutely, dude.
Nice.
And so here's something, and I think Eddie does the exact same thing, and I believe Jennifer does too. As soon as somebody connects with me, I automatically send them a message. And in my introductory message, I ask them, hey, thanks for sending over this connection request. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you through the content and engagement you have on the platform. I'd like to ask, why did you choose to connect with me so I can understand how I can help you further? And guess what? I do this really weird thing, and my husband hates that I do this because he's like, you're such a snob. But if you don't respond to that message within 2 to 3 weeks, I remove you from my network because it tells me you're not active on LinkedIn.
I love that.
Yeah, I kind of.
I need people who are going to be actively helping my network find their next role. And you can't do that if you're not on the platform every day.
I do something similar. If I go and I scrub my connection requests, if I see that you've reached 2 weeks, you're gone. I'm pulling it back. Right. Two suggestions to grow your network outside of the military or whatever space. All right. So I am a huge believer, and I think Jennifer, Nadia, you guys probably know this. I always call it the University of
YouTube.
The University of YouTube. So I'm a student of my space, of the TA space and sourcing and recruiting and all that. So I do a ton of learning on YouTube. What do you think I do when I'm watching webinars? I'm picking up the names and I'm going on LinkedIn and I'm reaching out to them. Hey, Jen, I just watched your video on messaging effectively. Loved it, blah, blah, blah. I would love to connect. Oh, thanks for watching. Boom, connection accepted. Another one is LinkedIn Learning. You have the ability to go see who in the entire world of LinkedIn is also taking that course. And if you want to be strategic and smart about it, you can reach out to them like, oh, hey, Shelby, I saw that you were taking talent acquisition 101. I'm going through it myself. What do you think? Boom. Right. So if you're educating yourself about something outside of your military specialty and you're trying to branch out, those are just some tips to kind of get out and meet new people. YouTube, webinars, and obviously the LinkedIn Learning courses, and even the actual authors and instructors that do those classes. I'm connected with Barbara Bruno, one of the best talent acquisition instructors on LinkedIn Learning Premium. Right, Holly? She's freaking bomb. Anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on and on. LinkedIn events. I go to LinkedIn events and I just type in St. Louis or I type in recruiting and I look at events that are happening and I go to those events to learn, but then I also go to those events so I can connect with like-minded individuals. I mean, there's just so many different ways that we can increase our network with people that are beneficial to the direction that we want to go next in our career, or how we're going to help other people, for all that matters.
Yeah, so that is kind of mine is a little different than Nadia's. Because I get a lot of connection requests from transitioning service members and military spouses who are just starting out and don't have a freaking clue about what they should be doing. So is that me? No, I do go through their profile and look for certain keywords, MIL spouse, veteran, FRG leader, whatever. If I see that, then I'll accept the connection request and reach out to them. That's just because I know they're starting out. I know they probably don't have any clue, and they probably need something from me, even if it's just to see my content. So I don't want to turn them away. But I completely understand why Nadia does what she does.
I do it because I'm mean.
That's why you don't have 13,000.
That's exactly why I don't have 13,000. One more important piece.
I'm
Todd,
too easy. Oh, you're from India? Okay, let's connect.
one more important piece that I want to share with Todd real quick. Todd, if you're in school, and Holly, I see you're in school right now. I'm in a very niche program at school. And so I'm in a very niche program at school. And so there's not a lot of IO psychologists in Alabama. It's just not a thing. Like, I don't even want to be in Alabama. So what I've done is I've connected with the alumni from my school who are IO psychologists. And that's how I get to network into my field. Because IO psychology is really, really hard to get into if you don't have a way to network into a position or have some type of way to get an internship. And so I use my school alumni programs to get into networking events, or to say, hey, we went to the same school together and we're studying the same program. Would you like to connect? 9 times out of 10, they're not military related whatsoever. And they're just like random people out there that love IO psychology, but now we have something in common. So if you're trying to broaden the scope a little bit more, that'll be a great way to do it too.
Thank you.
Really quick, I wanted to answer Candace's question. So Candace, I'm on mobile. I'm not connected to you yet, but right, I'm on your mobile. I can either hit connect. If I hit message, it automatically takes me to take a credit away. Oh, you can't see that. It asks me, right? It's gonna have me put a subject and my message, and then it's gonna take a credit. But if I click on the 3 little dots, right, on the end, and you scroll, you hit personalized invite, doesn't take credits. You can write your little message in there, send it out, and that automatically goes out with your connection request. So it's actually connect to you now.
I was just responding to you. I saw that after you said it on yours. However, when I was connecting to Nadia a little while ago, I did not see that option. So that's really interesting. I will now look for that. Thank you.
It's really easy to
Yeah, she got
to miss.
scared. Nadia's not going to connect with her.
No, I promise you, literally everybody in something completely different. That's something completely different. But if you are trying to connect with somebody in a company, please send that personalized message. If you met somebody at a networking event, a Shroom conference, or whatever conference for your industry, like, hey, it was really great to meet you, or you were a speaker at a conference I went to, I'd love to connect so I can continue to learn from you. Give them a compliment. They love that. People love that. Not me. I don't like that, but other people like that. I gotta go. It was really great to see you guys. Thank you, Scott. Let's do a nighttime one.
All right, bye. Yeah, we'll do
Bye.
nighttime.
Yeah.
And so I only got one more thing I wanted to go over real quick. So we talked about engaging in content, but I just real quick wanted to talk about creating content. So for the 17 people that we have left, Holly, I have your profile pulled up, and you had just mentioned.
I know, I'm so sorry. I'm working on creating my content better.
No,
That's
no,
one of the areas
no.
that I struggle with the most.
No, I think you're doing absolutely fabulous in the direction that you're going. So I'm just going to scroll on down to your activity section. Your about section obviously looks great. If I go to activity, and then I'm going to see all of your activity. I'm like literally putting you on the spot right now.
No, we're about to see who she's creeping on.
I creep on everybody, you guys. It's all.
No, it's good. It's what you should be doing. Let's see here. I got to go up and I'm going to go look at your posts. So I can see all activity or I can go to posts. And when I go to posts, then I can see the stuff that she has actually written and created. Now, this is where you really put yourself out there to be a little bit different than everybody else. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit and I'm going to pick this one. Of course, it's all about Eddie. Eddie. But okay, so here's what I like about it. Number one, it's about mentoring month. Anybody could create content about mentoring month and who's their mentor. When you create content, it can be professional, it can be personal, it can be insightful, it can be educational. Those are the 4 areas that you're kind of going to be looking at. But what I like about what Holly has been doing, and she must have gotten guidance from somebody because she's an old pro at this already, is she is tagging people, and not just a string of tags to make it look like you're desperate for people to engage in your content. I think you're strategically putting it throughout the content. You're using different font, which is great. You're using hashtags. You are tagging companies and organizations, and it's all coming together. You know, the paragraphs are short and easy to read and easy for me to scroll through. And the hope is that it creates engagement. Now, with that said, the other thing that I'm loving about what you're doing is this one only has 3 comments to it. That could really beat a person down, right? But you don't stop. You don't stop because you created a video or you created content and it didn't get much traction. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. It's going to take a little bit before that traction starts to pick up. And what I've noticed is that traction picks up, which is great. And then it's almost like when you take a step backwards, that traction is also going to go backwards with you as well. So keep in mind, professional, personal, insightful, educational. In anything that you're doing to kind of make yourself a better person. If you've even did a virtual coffee with somebody, talk about what you discussed with that individual. It makes great content that people resonate with. So with that said, I'm not going to put out a 30-day challenge because that is a lot. You're going to start writing about banana bread. But what I will say is that, you know, sort of you can create on your own to engage other people and put yourself out there. So Holly, what has been your strategy as you've started to create your own content?
So that's where, like I said, I feel like, again, I'm still new at this, but because of the feedback today, I kind of know where I need to go a little bit more. Right now, I've kind of been all over the map. Like, it's again, because I am a transitioning veteran, I'm focusing on that transition piece more than that recruiting role that I'm trying to get into. So that's where I think once or twice a week, posting about how I'm being successful in my transition process, I still want to focus on, but now getting more into that, okay, finding recruiting articles or finding recruiting things. And like I did with Eddie yesterday, I shared his post because I actually personally met with Michaela and was just so impressed by her and her company. I don't personally plan to work there, but I still wanted to get that information out because once I get into that recruiting realm, that's where I'm going to be. So I'm trying to change it over time. So it's still slow, but again, I've only been on this platform for 1 month. And again, can't say enough good things about Eddie. I know I'm always saying thank you, but he's taught me so much in this last month. And I appreciate it.
We all have good things to say about Eddie. You're not alone. I'm pretty sure I embarrassed the crap out of him when I met him in person. And Eddie, I'm very sorry about that.
No,
I
it was
totally, I
awesome. It was
geeked
awesome.
out, Holly. You have no idea.
I would probably go all fangirl, like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
True story.
See?
It was cool. It was cool.
Yeah, right. He's being very gracious.
All right, so my good friend Greg has decided he's going to chime in finally. Just real quick, totally off topic. I mean, we've been going overtime, but Greg is amazing. He worked for university and now he's decided to pivot into a different career field, and he's never been affiliated with the military. So I'm so happy Greg is here. Thank you. Greg knows my porch because he literally used to live right next door to me. He's only moved a few blocks away. So yeah, he's making me turn red. So he knows my house, and he knows probably exactly where I'm at and why my connection is turning shitty. So with that said, I appreciate everybody. Hopefully everybody has gotten a lot of great information from today. Do we have any other burning questions that you might have before we depart? And I think by the feedback, we definitely need to do this in the evening and, kind of carry on. So with that said, any questions for us?
No, thanks again. I definitely picked up some new things I needed to work on as well. So thanks.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Good always seeing you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Scott. You're always facilitating these and holding these. I think it's awesome. A hell of a job what you're doing. I really appreciate it. And I already want to go see that. Yeah, I never wrote you a recommendation. So brother, I'm going to be on that. But thank you again for everything that you do.
I appreciate it. And like I said, I study, I review, I read, I learn, but there's nothing like bringing other people into the arena that do it on a daily basis. So thank you for showing us sort of the inside of an ATS system. And, for anybody out there, please let me know how I can help you through this process and kind of get you to where you need to go. So with that said, I mean, we're more than happy to start to drop off. I'll stick around for a little bit, even though the Netflix is streaming on 4K. It's probably Grace watching YouTube, Greg. But with that said, thank you, everybody. I'll stick around for a little bit if you have any individualized questions. Britt, we definitely need to talk. Your profile needs a lot of help, and we're going to get you to where you need to go.
I need so much help. I'm so glad you said that. I haven't checked it out in like 3 years. So I wanted, before I touched it all again, I wanted to get this workshop in and just kind of get all the tidbits that I could before I really went to work on it, so that I had a great foundation to work off of. And I definitely think that we did that here. And I'm super grateful for everybody's input. All the plethora of notes that I was taking on the side, and the Google Doc is quite long right now, but it's just one of those things that I definitely wanted to get all that information I could before like I said, I went to work on it. And I definitely know what direction I need to head in now, but we'll link up. Absolutely.
Okay, good. Focus on what you want to do and not what you're doing.
Exactly. Yep.
Hey, Scott, thanks so much. I'm going to add education that I went to the Scott R. Institute of Technology, but I don't see you as a choice of drop down here. No, just
That's
kidding.
okay.
Just thanks so much for this time, man. It was awesome. And thank you for the teammates. Look forward to connecting and look forward to following and just working on this great tool. Thanks so much. Appreciate
Absolutely. And you didn't even get a chance to talk about Jibber Jabber.
it. I didn't.
We need a whole new workshop so you can talk about Jibber Jabber.
Oh my gosh. And I got to spend about 4 hours cleaning it up and getting the Jibber Jabber thing up to date. And they actually keep an eye on me. The customer success people will reach out to me and go, "Hey, how's it going, Todd?" Which is kind of cool. So
Yeah, I love that platform.
great. Thanks, Scott.
All right, no, take care.
Hey, Scott. So I know this is me engaging. I've been pretty quiet this whole time. It's
That's
just
okay.
a lot of information to soak in. Like if you check out my LinkedIn profile, I've changed my picture and my banner. That's the most I've done and what school I've gone
Awesome.
to. So I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody's LinkedIn account, learning a lot. But most importantly, I appreciate everybody's personality. Everybody that was on today really showed who they truly are, and that means a lot. You know, you guys are not fake, putting on a show for this training. Just being authentic was awesome. So thank you all.
I think that speaks a lot to who we are as people that want to help you get to where you need to go next. And, you know, that's all I'll say. I think Eddie understands where I'm going.
Yep.
All right. So thanks again, Eddie, for joining us. I think doing this in the evening would be a great idea. We won't have any work interruptions, and I think we'll definitely get more people to participate, and it'll be a lot lighter mood, so to speak. So yeah, let's do this at night.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Let me know.
Perfect. Take care.
All right, guys.